Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome to your Wednesday edition of Second Breakfast. I hope you guys are doing great out there. I had a really unexpectedly fun time last night over on Bloodworth's Discord, starting a new campaign. Uh, I'm going to be able to manage to be able to be in that. I thought I was going to have some difficulties, but he offered me the Arcane Thief in his Castles and Crusades game, and I looked it over and I'm like, never run one of these before. This sounds kind of fun. So, made up a character, not so great stats, but whatever. Um, I, you know, I take what I get. Generous with the rolling system, but I rolled a bunch of twos. So, what are you going to do, right? But some some new players that I'm going to get to play with, some old players uh, that I played with for years, and everybody was in unusually high role playing spirits. Uh, the spirits is actually a reference to the inebriated state our characters began the game in, and we just kind of rolled with that, and that was really fun. And everybody was actually, Blood Rush, introduce your characters, and so we did. And normally that's kind of like I'm a fighter, I'm a cleric, I'm a thief, elf, blah blah. No, there was very little of that. We actually were um, maybe making Bloodworth a little uncomfortable with how goofy we were, but at the same time, we're adventurers, we're young, we're stupid, we're uh, inexperienced, and apparently prone to heavy drinking. And I'll keep you guys apprised of that as we go along. Really looking forward to playing with some of these people that I've either never played with before. Dominic, I believe that's your name. You seem like a good chap, and looking forward to getting to play and fight alongside OGGM for the not the first time, but for what looks like a good long time. And of course, Coco B. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you again, not just in Bloodworth's game, but in the game I'm running, which is weird because Bloodworth, OG, Coco, and maybe Melkor, maybe Mac Thompson. I think he was just giving me shit, but that's fine. So some people whose friendship and opinions I actually you know appreciate and respect want to be in this game, which is really weird because I'm running like a new AD&D game. Yeah, I know. OG's like, why AD&D? Well, OG, because it's the game I know the best. It's the game I could run in my sleep. It's the game that does everything I want it to do. I can literally show you and cite you line and verse where every game, every retro clone that's come after it has, in my opinion, shortchanged the players. We started out in White Box with some limitations, and even in AD&D, there are plenty of those. But Omenal says it's like the easiest or the most easy game to play at, maybe. But the rewards and the challenges are also greater, in my opinion, because there's more to be had, in my opinion. And we certainly did, Sean. We certainly did. Until Arduin, Bloody Arduin comes out, AD&D is my go-to fantasy role-playing game. There's some cool ones out there. I've played a lot of them lately, and AD&D does everything I want it to do. The magic users can use magic. I complain about low level, but when they get to, their stride, they can do some amazing things. The way creating magic items is handled is the way I like it. It gives the players a lot of control. They can do some stuff with very little chance of failure if they do the simple stuff. The more crazy stuff, and with the more penny pinching, cheap, lazy, horrible DMs out there that put the insane limits on there. Um, shame on you. It doesn't cost you anything, but oh yeah, time. and knowing the rules and knowing how to run a higher level game. And most of you guys, you don't know how to do it. So uh, what are you waiting for? No time like the present. Run a high level game. Nothing challenges you more than that. Any greenhorn DM can come along and run a first through seventh level game and maybe even be great at it. Running the higher stuff takes massive skill and knowledge of the game to run it and not have it fall apart. Okay, um, if you can run a high level game, then you can handle the bigger challenges. You can handle the cooler monsters. I mean, you're not going to be throwing vampires at first level characters. Even at seventh level characters, it can take an entire party to take out a vampire. But when you're running like 17th level characters, they could be fighting a whole coven of vampires or whatever they call it. It's a murder of vampires or a, a goth metal band. I don't know. Whatever a group of vampires is, you could do that. Uh, well, yeah, of course they got to earn it. You don't just give it to them. But you know, sometimes, or maybe for some folks, if they're getting back into it or um, they want to try and experiment, which I've done many times, is start a game out at ninth level and give them either pre-gens or work with them because as fun as it is going to be for them, it's going to be taxing and challenging to your ability to do so. If your players never earn it, then you never run it. If you never run it, then you don't know how to run it. And the only way to learn how to run it is to run it. So if you want to be great, you've got to run high level games at some point, or you're just great at keeping them down, or saying, "Oh, well, you're eighth level, time to pack this game in. Let's start up and roll first level characters." Why? Well, because you don't know what to do. Oh, there's plenty of you know advice and things to read out there to learn how to run a high level game. But if you don't know how to do it, there's only one way to learn, and that's to do it. I played with Texan named Dan Velasic. Somehow he kept coming up with near infinite supply of plus 10 metal. No one else could figure out where it was coming from. Well, that's between him and the DM, maybe. Maybe that player made plans and carried them out and did the things that it takes to get that resource. Obviously they don't have to tell you, but if the DM says, "Hey, it's legit," then you got to roll with it and go, "Okay, they figured something else out." And you could always uh, have your character talk to that character and say, "Hey, cut me in, man. I want in on this." I'm not sure exactly what you mean by plus 10 metal. If you mean metal that's automatically plus 10 metal, I would say, well, you probably went to Arduin because there's shit like that over there, or you're an Amberite, or you use probability travel to find such things, or they happened upon it, or there's a specific place in some lore book that I'm unfamiliar with because I don't do plus 10 anything really. It could be done, um, and people care somehow or whatever, but uh, I use the proficiency rules from AD&D, and if you put extra slots in your weapon smithing, you can make a plus weapon, non magical. If you roll a 20 in it and you've got more than the 3 slots in it, I talked about that last week, or whatever. But they still play like low levels, busting in without thought. Well, um, that sucks, but I do that too. As a player, well, yeah, every world's different, like I said, your answer I may never have heard of, and you can't really fault me for that because out of all the people I know, nobody wastes more time reading this crap than I do. So share with the rest of the class, will you? Sean, if you want the link, just let me know. I'll pop it in there. Maybe get new players or play with a new group. or what do you call it? You know, I don't know, man. That sucks. If you play with the same group long enough, um, you would think eventually some of them will get there, but um, they also may have been educated wrong or poorly in their younger formative years of playing the game, and haven't learned how to break those bad habits. I'm just going to put the link out there just in case you or another friend of ours wants to pop in. You travel to the sun with a necklace of adaptation, possibly a spell gemmer helm, a ring of fire resistance, because unless you deem the sun magical, that ought to do it. The group is fine, just they are learning the hard way. Troll encounter that should have been a cakewalk was made extra difficult through bad tactics and bad dice. Well, nothing you can do about bad dice. That's going to happen everywhere you go. I can't roll a character with a like a really nice set of stats to save my life. Sean, welcome to the show. Dun, dun,
I
dun,
got my
dun, dun,
haircut,
dun,
so my
dun.
face looks extra fat. I'm like a chipmunk.
Nah, you're just fat. We're old. It's okay. You can be fat and old.
Oh,
And
I
what are they
said
going to do?
extra fat. I've
Everybody
already
we
got the fat.
everybody
I
we
just
know. What are they going to do? They're going to come and take make us hop on the treadmill. Most of the people we care about died of old age a long time ago. So you know, just you, me, and the rest of the world. That is one of the things I keep. Not that my most of my friends have all passed away, so I just get to hang out with you schmoes. Um, no, actually, I feel I consider myself very lucky to have been able to make really good friends, over the interwebs. Shauna used to say, "Oh, they're not your real friends; they're just people on the internet." Hey, shut the fuck up.
well, Shauner was a
You can't.
curmudgeon who didn't have a positive thought in his brain. So
He did about 2 years before he passed. He was okay, but then the thing that, anyways, we'll talk about him when the anniversary comes up because there's still a lot of people who miss him. But um, going back to your players being, murder hobo, clumsy, uh,
well, they oscillate. They oscillate.
reckless.
They're a good group. They're a good group in general, but yeah,
Mhm.
they we've resumed Night Below, and they're in book 2 now, which is where it gets really hard, like really hard. And I warned them, you got to play on your A game. And what do? They bluster into a troll cave, and they use the worst tactics possible against trolls, right? And one player even tried to line them up. It's like, okay, we got the back where our escape route. Let's create a line in front of our escape route so they can't get around us. It's like you just created a buffet line. With trolls, you need to bottleneck them, right? And it's like, wow, he almost TPK'd the group with that action. The other thing was when they sent off the troll set. I'm putting this in the recap, but when they
Mhm.
surprised the troll sentries, they the rolled resource, so they had surprise. They had a group with two rangers who are in the fifth, sixth level range can make short work of trolls, right?
Should.
Among others. And it's like, okay, divide and half the group attack one troll, half the group that attack the other, take them down. They decide, no, we're going to shoot them. It's like, well, shooting trolls is worthless. The damage is so minimal; they just regenerate it so fast. And so the
Well, I mean,
trolls,
unless you pin cushion them with, you know,
unless you have
three or
so many.
four.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
bombard, but they divided their attacks. Plus, the attack rolls didn't help. They missed a lot too, so that's not their fault. Dice are dice, um, but the trolls they're thinking the trolls are just going to attack, and the trolls just started screaming and running to alert the rest of the tribe. Right? Like, oh, I didn't expect that. It's like, well, that's what sentries are for. Even troll sentries do
Mhm.
their jobs.
Let me ask you a question on something that like a lot of DMs I know can't wrap their head around or won't allow because it's too efficient. Um, the Molotov cocktail, right?
Okay, what about it?
You know how when you throw it and it breaks and it catches the guy on fire, right?
Yeah.
But if you throw it and you miss, or you hit one of your friends, they catch on fire.
Yeah, I use the grenade style. There's a whole
Okay,
system for grenade style
okay.
missiles.
What if you take the Molotov cocktail and you don't light it on fire?
Then you just cover somebody in oil, assuming the cask breaks. You got to roll the breakage of the cask.
Mhm, mhm. What if you have specially designed containers made, carried in a special satchel, like a 6 pack, that's padded to protect them from breaking. But then you take them out and you throw them, and you make
Okay.
sure you hit before you apply the fire.
Okay. Sure. Then
Uh,
you
I've had
you have to
DMs tell
light
me
the
you can't
fire
do that.
down the road. I
Like
give
I've
players
literally
one.
told DMs that I throw the Molotov cocktail, but I don't light it on fire. And then they go, okay, roll to hit, do the thing. Okay, it missed. It catches so and so on fire. I'm like, we didn't apply the fire yet. I was like, well, that's
Yeah.
what a Molotov cocktail is. Did you not? You can't do that. Why? Well, because just dumb
No,
crap like that.
I don't
Um,
tell them they can't do something. I react to what they say they do. Right? It's like you throw an
right.
unlit.
Like literally like throw the cocktail at a location on the ground instead of
Yeah.
on the target so that it lights up an area of fire. Now you've denied access to that area, or if they happen to be standing in that area and are covered with fire, then they should ignite.
Yeah,
Correct?
I mean, it's all circumstantial. Like, I mean, a small pool of oil, and if it's a wide space, like they actually tried this in the game. The one player, I'm going to dump the oil out onto this, and he pointed at this area. And it's like, okay, well, the trolls just went around the fire. He was like, what?
Mhm.
What do you mean, what? They're not stupid, right?
Well, yeah, of course they're going to go around it if they can. But if have like your magic user or your thief or the people who can't really go toe to toe with a troll, you set up a freaking fire trap essentially. You
Yeah.
know,
If
um,
again, I react to how they like what they're doing. So yeah, if they throw the unlit oil and it hits a troll, and then the guy with the torch is okay. I'm going to ignite it. Yeah, no, all good. But that guy with the torch has got to get in, within reach of the
or
troll,
just throw the torch.
or throw the torch. But that's no guarantee of ignition or hit, right? You're
Mhm.
better off going in on the melee and using your hands, or sending one of the heavy armored guys who's already going to be meleeing. It's not a stupid idea for the heavy armored paladin to dual wield sword and torch, right? But yeah, react to the situation. But yeah, a DM who says, "Well, no, I don't allow that." It's like, well, why wouldn't you allow it? Let the players make the choices they want to make.
Because I've heard things like, well, your players wouldn't know how to do that,
Why wouldn't they?
or you're using your metagaming or using modern knowledge and stuff like that. I'm like,
Yeah, stuff like that. The idea that somebody put a lit flask into an oil, I'm willing to believe that somebody, in a fantasy world on another planet has figured that shit out. That doesn't bother me.
yeah,
Um,
especially I did a video on this a while ago. We're not the same dumb kids we used to be. We've learned a lot, and that's one of the things that makes the game uh,
Now,
more challenging and harder
when
to
when
run.
when the fighter with a Weaver background starts quoting quantum physics, okay, maybe we start shutting down, right? If they apply scientific method that we take for granted in a modern society, but
Mhm.
medieval society won't know. But I often do what I do in cases like that. Again, I don't want to deny, because you never know. You never know. Like, we're playing with a fantasy world, but you never know what level of tech or education they might have had, unless you've really defined it to a T for your game world.
Mhm.
When a player comes up with something, I'll usually say, okay, well, let's roll it against your intellect, and then I'll make a judgment call. It's like, all right, give me 7d6 against your intellect, and you've got to get equal to
Mhm.
or under, right? Because
Well,
7 would be
I've been
difficult.
I've been watching for the last year or so. I do prepper stuff. I'm a bit of a prepper, and I've taught some prepping classes, and um, I've been watching turn of the century and 18 and 1900s, videos on how they lived and how they, went through the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl and things like that. That were skills that were handed down from God knows how long. Different ways of preserving food and
Mhm.
rendering fat and simple things that we just don't do anymore. Our
Right.
grandmothers did things, to us seem crazy. I mean, they washed their aluminum foil, they washed your throwaway like Ziploc or plastic
Yeah, because
bags,
they came from the Great Depression, so they saved everything because you never know what you're going to need.
and use those things for crazy purposes that we would just like, but just throw it away. We'll get another one. That kind of disposable mentality that we've kind of had since about the 70s.
Yeah,
But
because we got mass-produced junk, so
mhm.
that's
and,
not
and
my.
there's a lot of I like to play rangers, so there's a lot of information, even having been a forestry, worked for the forestry department, a ranger, if you will. I'm still learning new stuff that I can apply to when I run a ranger or when I run someone who ostensibly lives outdoors most of their life because they're going from dungeon to dungeon, wilderness adventure. You're going to pick up these things, or you're going to not make it.
Right,
When it
and
comes
to the point of I was making earlier, when the players say want to do something that's not necessarily covered in the rules, like what would a ranger know? And so when a ranger is doing something related to being a ranger or related to the forest, I'll do that D6 check against their intellect. Only I'll reduce the difficulty. Right, might be 3d6, but when the city slicker wizard wants to do something foresty, it's all right. Well, you got to do a 6d6 against your intellect, but a wizard's intellect might be higher, so it's conceivable they studied it, right? They read something about it, so they
Mhm.
might actually make that roll against all odds because hey, I read it in a book while I was studying for
Mhm.
my
Well,
magic. But that's why I like
I
that
know you
system.
don't use the proficiency rules. I really like them, but I do use also the secondary skills bare minimum, and a lot of those will inform you as to what your character might or might not know. For example, if okay, you've got the list of secondary skills, right? And
Mhm.
maybe you're lucky and you get two, right?
Right,
But the ones you don't get are things you probably don't know how to do by virtue of you not having rolled them.
right. Generally speaking, yeah. Well, the secondary skill
So
in AD&D is it was basically your background before you became an adventurer. Is
and could be
uh,
pretty wide, in scope.
so just out of curiosity, have you found with the rolling of the secondary skill that people who roll two will end up whiffing on the second roll and roll the same result twice and not get a second one and ignore it? Did you
I find more often that they roll no secondary skill of value.
of value? Yeah, exactly.
It's like, wait a minute, it says I get two. Yeah, but the other roll says you get nothing. Yeah,
Yeah,
but the
then
first
they
one,
roll again.
all right, roll
No,
again.
no value. It keeps happening. Everybody who's gotten two when we've done the thing has always whiffed and got a second one that says no value. I just wondering if you had the same experience.
Yeah, Quasi is sharing ultra high level secrets with the Nubosphere.
The Nubisphere. Oh.
Different games, different players, different sides of the world. Um,
Mhm.
you know, I'll allow minor secondary ability with an AD&D type of tune, like 2 and 6 ability, etc., or +1 rolls in certain situations. Um, 2 and 6 is like 30% chance. So +1 is
30%. Yeah.
5% chance. I'll take the 2 and 6.
But
Uh, I always have a problem with people thinking +1 is a big deal. It's not. To me, it's just not. It's five
oh, I
percent.
agree. I'm on the camp that it is a big deal. But it depends on the situation. Like it's amazing how many rolls missed by a single point. And the this encounter we just had this past weekend with the trolls. The troll shaman put a curse on the group, so they were -1. Doesn't seem like a big deal, but four of the key attacks missed by a single point. So yeah, in the wash, it really does make a difference. I agree with you. Statistically, it does shouldn't 5%.
Mhm.
Although when you're playing something like OSE or BX and like encounter reactions, charisma modifiers are +1 and +2 maximum, but that's a 2d6 roll. So a +1 and a 2d6 is actually significantly significant. So But no, it's in when you're playing modern games. If you're playing third ed or fifth ed, +1 is absolutely meaningless. When you're dealing with creatures with like 56 AC, I got a +1 to strike. It's like it
Mm-hmm.
makes no difference. But in the older
Mm-hmm.
systems, a +1 can be huge, especially at low levels. If you
Mm-hmm.
are a first level character fighting somebody in chainmail armor, you're only hitting on basically a 15, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have a 30% chance of success. That +1, if you got a 14, suddenly you've made a hit, and that often happens. So it's weird. It doesn't seem like a lot, but in practice, it does play out. +1 makes all the difference.
I'm mostly referring to like my big one. Biggest example is aiming.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in a lot of games, especially like modern games, where like if you aim, you get a +1, and I'm like, so if I do that, or if I do that,
Okay, so
I'm only 5% better to
contextually,
hit.
yeah, I would tend to agree, depending on what it was. Like if you're a sniper and you've spent a round and you've given up so much advantage to gain that bonus, then a +1 can be meaningless. Generally speaking, a
Mm-hmm.
+1 is great, but yeah, I mean, context will change that. If I've
That's not even adding a scope.
right,
If you've ever done any hunting,
but the math of the system is
there's a
important too.
reason why we.
The math of the system is
Mhm.
important too.
Right,
So,
and I'm not discounting that a lot of your chance to hit comes from the person, not the weapon or the action, but the person's ability. But I can take a guy down to the range and instead of three separate rifles, you know what I mean? Same rifle, iron sights, no aiming, and a scope, against moving or unmoving targets, and the percentages only get better, and it's not by 5% increments. It's 20s, 30s. With a scope, you can teach a guy to hit 90% of the weekend. You know,
mhm.
um, yeah, but game designers don't do those things, in the real world. So they just, +2, okay, that should work. +2 for using a scope and sitting there and freaking taking a round, like you said, to aim. No, I should be looking at a 95% chance of hitting. If my scope is dialed in and I do all the things, how do I miss? Unless he suddenly like, develops super speed or falls in a hole and, he's walking and then he falls in a hole and I can't hit him. What's to stop? You know what I mean?
Well,
The physics.
if you're gonna, if you can't make the games hyper real. I mean, that's just the reality of making the games. The games have to have a flow and a baseline. So that's up to you as the DM to say, okay, well, I'm familiar with snipers, I'm familiar with scopes, and I'm going to apply X bonus instead of the stated book bonus, which is too low, right? You totally have that that power. But I mean, the important thing in the game design is to create something that has that can be grasped by the players and has a flow, has a grounding, a baseline for how to resolve the conflicts in the game.
Mhm,
The individual modifiers you can always adjust accordingly.
mhm,
I get this when we talk weapon type versus armor a lot because I use that system in AD&D,
mhm.
and the biggest argument is, well, they're not accurate modifiers to the weapon versus the armor, and it's like, well, that may be so, but the system works as designed. It makes weapon variety important, and it makes it a
Squirrel.
consideration. So hey,
I,
squirrel.
I, I agree. Unfortunately, um, sometimes it it can slow the game down if you're not a master at it, or you don't have it handy, or
Well, that's a different discussion in terms of how realistic or accurate it is. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, I love it and the idea of weapon speed and things like that that got were like literally like the first things thrown out. You know what I mean? In
And they're
practice,
so easy to implement. And that's the funny thing is, you beeping or me? It's you. Okay, we have the
I
same
don't know.
indicator for our Discord. I keep hearing your
Yeah.
Discord beep. Um, yeah. I mean, weapon speed in AD&D is only used in two circumstances. Like it's like everybody's trying to calculate it at every turn. It's like, no, you only use it when there's a tied initiative or if it's a weapon versus a spellcaster. Other than that, you ignore it. Um,
Mhm.
and even the weapon type
I
adjustments.
have seen a couple of systems where they simplified it versus for slashing, piercing, and blunt. Versus
Yeah,
armor.
second ed did that. Yeah,
So you're not looking at every single freaking weapon. Was that the one I was thinking of?
yeah, second
Personally,
ed
I think if
did
you
it that way where they
it,
category weapon type.
it, if someone would make the wheel easily and readily available, or back in time or in the present, uh, I know a lot of people who would absolutely use
Oh,
it.
the
Because
I use the
to me
weapon
that was
types.
such a
I've
genius little invention.
I've got a track right along the character sheets I give my players, and I can just put the weapon types there, so they know. Because I'm one of those DMs. I don't tell you what AC you're going for, but I will tell you what armor type you're going for, and that's the armor type is the
Mhm.
key for weapon type adjustments. So it's like your if your opponent's wearing armor or leather armor, that's armor type 8. So you just have to look at 8, okay, and then say, okay, I'm +2 to strike against armor type 8, and
Mhm.
then that's that easy. It's really not going to slow your game down that much.
Mhm.
But if you don't note it and you have to look it up in the book every time, yeah, that's gonna be a pain in the ass.
Yeah, yeah. OGGM was asking me because I'm running another AD&D game, high espionage cloak and dagger kind of thing. He's like, "Why AD&D? Instead of one of the retro clones." Well, first off, I kind of hate all the retro clones just by virtue of them being a retro clone. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I know half a dozen to a score of DMs that could write their own game that wouldn't be a retro clone. They could come up with a whole new system of fantasy, mechanics without having to copy, because that's all they really are to me is just cheap Chinese knockoffs with the serial numbers filed off of the greatest game ever.
Well, there
Um,
aren't a
you
lot
know,
of one retro clones. It's just pretty much Osric. Have you seen any others?
they're all the same as far everything that came after AD&D to me is a retro clone. If you're using 6 stats down the line, if you're using armor class, whether it's ascending or descending, although ascending is better because people are stupid these days, and even back then it was hard for some people to wrap their head around. They were
Yeah.
never taught negative numbers.
I
Um,
find people have more trouble with ascending when the bonuses start adding up because now they're looking at they have to, oh, I rolled a 10, or I rolled a 13, what's 13 plus 16? It's like, so it's the same.
that's if you've ever seen any of the videos where the guy with the microphone asks, youngsters, I'm not going to go any further than that, some basic questions, and they get them wrong, but then they let them say, they tell them, oh yeah, you're right, and let them go their merry way for the rest of their life, thinking that you know uh, George Washington fought in the Civil War, kind of thing, kind of
Mhm.
questions or whatever. uh, it just blows my mind how dumb the powers that be have made us, through things like not holding kids back in school. There was a year I got held back, and I'm glad they did. If I would have gone forward, my GPA went from X to Y, in the positive because I got held back. I'd rather have good grades because I understood the thing than to just have passing grades because they just passed me to get me through the mill.
Well, and many teachers just don't want the hassle, and so they're like, whatever. And
Right?
really, I mean, I was held back in grade 5 because my mother insisted. It was sort of the opposite of the modern situation. Like my ex was a teacher, my current buddy, the guy who plays Onion Buns, is a teacher, and he, like the entitlement they have to deal with some parents is just unreal. But my mother was the opposite. It's like, no, if he's not pulling his weight, you hold him back. He's got to learn his lesson. It's like, fuck. I was not happy at the time, but it's an
Good for you,
adult.
Grandma. Yeah, I sorry, I'm having trouble with my freaking trying to use move the chat along. Uh, I wouldn't allow a sword to block a nuclear weapon. I don't care how kind of magic it is. um, the very ground you were standing on would be gone, and you'd be taking falling damage, radiation damage, all kinds of crap. But Omen's about 15 minutes behind.
He's still on the oil thing, yeah.
But hey, I appreciate the fact that you're doing the thing to catch up and all that. A lot of people just come in and just use us as background noise. Well, thanks, Omen. Uh, yeah, you know, I was thinking about that the other day. All the things and ways in the world that D&D influenced or broke ground for not just gaming, of course, but other things. In like the expression "leveling up" that came from D&D, but
Mm.
we use it for a million things now, right? And there's so many other ways that the hobby, you know, just expanded into, uh, new ways of thinking. I wouldn't be surprised if there are dossiers out there within the government that literally read like a character sheet, with strength, intelligence, wisdom, dexterity on them. You know what I mean? Um,
That would be funny.
I,
you,
I,
you
but
see the
it's
government secret file on you, and it's literally a D&D character sheet.
But I mean, if you think about it, it's actually genius. It literally, that's why I love B&B so much, because you come into that game, you're making your character, it's yourself, and all your friends get to decide what your stats are. Hopefully, from knowing you, maybe asking a few questions like how much you can bench press, But it's like, 3 charisma, stuff like that. The
Three
jokes,
charisma
but
for yourself. I'm an 18, buddy. Look, look at
well,
look at the fudge.
those jowls. But it was an interesting wake up call, to realize, hey, yeah, my strength is like 7, or whatever, or my con is better than I thought because I never get sick, stuff like that. But it's a great way to sort of identify and categorize people.
Yeah, I don't need the blow to the ego to try to find out what my stats would be.
But if you use it, and apply the scientific method, so to speak, to figure out, like with strength, how much you can lift and carry, not like us in the real world, but your characters, when you start getting up into those higher strengths and you realize what you can carry in the way of gear, not just coins, because that's sort of an arbitrary thing that we can't even imagine what it would be like to carry 100 gold coins, let alone own 100 gold coins. You know what I mean? Or silver dollars. Like the other day, I was at the bank. I was like, "Do you have any 50 cent pieces?" And they're like, "Huh? 50 cent pieces, coins." Like, "Oh, we can order them. But why would you want those? We're phasing out all coins. We want everything to be on the even dollar. Like, what the hell you say? What? No haggling? I got to haggle from $1 to $0. That's not going to work. When I'm at the swap meet, or the flea market, it's like, now I got to get 3 other pieces of your junk for my $1 instead of this one piece of junk. No, but how much you can carry without it being a big deal, especially if you talk to guys in the military. Their regular pack was, for a lot of us would be like, what? You carried all that all day? Yeah. And then you walked for freaking how many miles? Yeah. And that was all of us. And if you didn't make it, you were out. If you couldn't do it, like you can't hang out with us because we're going over there. Pack your shit. You're leaving. You're washing out. And when you like, if you were to look that up, what a pack weighs. Like a military pack, I think it's like 65 pounds plus a weapon and other stuff, and then compare that to the encumbrance, values in under your strength, where you can carry this much and not be encumbered, and have this kind of movement rate. Those guys are kind of trained to be kind of badasses. Just in boot camp.
Well,
You
that's
know.
assuming you use the encumbrance rules, which a lot of people hand wave away.
Oh. I absolutely hate all of them except like good old fashioned pounds. This is how many pounds you can carry, and bulkier items. The
Well,
idea that
that's why the coin-based system is great, because it's an abstraction of both the weight and the bulk. It's like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just an easy
the
track. You've got a number. It's like, all right, this is what I'm burdened with. It doesn't have to be a precise calculation to the cubic foot of what bulk you're carrying. That's why a
yeah.
two-handed sword, a two-handed sword, a claymore weighs what, 6, 7 pounds in real life, but it's 250 coin weight in AD&D, which would be 25 pounds. But that's not the direct weight. That's that's counting the fact that it's this big fucking thing that you can't just carry on your hip. You've actually got to
Mhm.
carry it if you want to be able to move.
No
And
worries,
that.
Grandma. You're back. Like, there's this system in this new game called Dungeon Dwellers from Reaper Miniatures.
Mhm.
Like we were talking in Castles and Crusade last night, and it uses slot systems, and you get one slot per strength point, which is really minuscule. Me and another guy are like, I can't carry treasure.
Yeah, I'm
Carrying the
not.
bare minimum, just my clothes, a bow, a quiver, my backpack, uh, and the clothes that I'm wearing. I can't carry any treasure at all. I can't even carry rations. Okay, that's dumb. You if you can't do those things, you can't adventure. If you can't carry a week's worth of food into the wild because you don't have a horse and you've got to carry it, you can't adventure. You can't do it. Someone else has got to carry your weight like hell, you know. But Castles and Crusades has this thing where the backpack takes up 3 slots, but or 2 slots, but it allows you to carry 2 slots. It's like you get more. You get a little bit more carrying capacity because of the backpack,
Right.
which is what backpacks are for.
That's the
They
point.
distribute the weight so that it doesn't feel like it's as much as it is. And Dungeon Dwellers uses a similar system, but the backpacks, are so well designed, almost too well designed, as if like REI made them, for a fantasy world, to where you can carry like, you know, like it weighs like a slot or two, right? But it can carry like 8, and you don't notice it, which is the way it freaking should be. But then again, you know, uh, comparing like this to this, if they're not even, they shouldn't be even in the slot like system. 3 torches and a 50-foot coil of rope are not the same. It's way easier to carry the 3 torches than it would be to carry 50 feet of rope. If you've ever carried a 50-foot coil of rope, even the best, thinnest, freaking high tech crap out there is still pretty bulky,
Mhm.
right? Um, but what you can do with the 50-foot coil of rope, I mean, I could literally take a 50-foot coil of rope out in the wild and make like 20 torches.
Well, I mean, from a carrying perspective, from an encumbrance, but this is why you diversify. It's like not every
Mhm.
character is the same kit. It's like, okay, who's got the
Which
rope? All
is
right,
which
two
is
people with
another
rope.
thing that blows my mind. Um, uh, Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with you guys. Yeah, they are abstract, but uh, if you've never been camping, then you really need to find someone else to write that chapter for you. You know what I mean? The bare minimum. If you've never been on a hike, you know, you have no idea that it's not as easy as people make it out to be, and some things aren't as hard as they make them out to be. Right? No one ever uses the exhaustion rules. It's just like, oh yeah, you travel, 25 miles in a day. Yeah, and when you get to the end of the road, you are you're
You're
knackered.
wiped. Yeah, yeah.
You're not staying up to watch. You're not watching out
Well, that's why
for
travel days in D&D are shorter, right? Because like you don't
what's up, nerdy.
you come to the end of the day where it's like, all right, yes, this is where we're going to take watch now while we still have some energy. We can rest, and we haven't totally, we're not going to be completely dead to the world throughout the night and get jumped. Um, but that's why, I mean, even in D&D there are force marching rules. If you're going to push yourself, then
Hmm.
you're useless for a certain amount of time until you
Right.
recover.
And even then, like like I did the video last week or the week before on night watches and nighttime encounters. Animals are leaving you the hell alone. You're not going to get a lion or a wolf or a bear coming into camp and attacking you. They don't do that. The few times in recorded history they've done that was because they were, starving, injured, or one of these very
Well, I
few
leave that to
minute.
the dice. The dice say if the dice say there's an encounter. Remember, the encounter doesn't mean they attack, but that means
Right,
there's
but the
something they're
dice, I
hunting.
mean, unless you're rolling a D1000, the dice are skewing it in favor of the impossible or the highly unlikely. Even
We're
a
there to
one
play.
on 2D6.
Everything about the game is impossible and unlikely. But
Well,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. I mean, uh, if you set up the area and you go, okay, well, there's these things here, and yes, there is, a bear that's known to do these things, cool. But randomly, if you say there's a 1 in 10 chance that the wolves will attack, that's
no,
still 100.
there's a 1 in 10 chance that the wolves will be in the area. That's not necessarily that's other dice that will indicate whether or not
Well,
they're
yeah, I'm just,
hostile or friendly.
I don't remember the exact. What is it? 2 dice 6 for reaction.
In AD&D, it's a percentage.
Okay. Even then, 1% chance is way more than it actually happens in reality. That's why I said a D1000.
Again, like I said, we're playing a game, so I don't mind the heightened reality. The fact
Well,
is when if the players are
all
camping in the wilderness, but the points you make are valid. It's like okay, so the watch is keeping a good fire. Fire will keep most animals at bay, but that doesn't mean they don't hear the wolves howling 100 yards away, or it spices up. Even if the encounter doesn't encounter like it doesn't come in and form a combat, there's something
mhm.
going on. Maybe the druid hears the wolves and is like, I'm going to go see if I can cast my animal friendship on one of them. That creates that opportunity. Um,
That spell is way powerful. I
no,
watched it.
but that
I
that's not the
watched it.
that's not what we're talking about though. Yes, that's a great spell. But the point is, from the encounter dice perspective, you're rolling to see what happens, and just because an encounter turns up doesn't mean it has to be a combat. Not all encounters have to be combat, but in
Mhm,
the case of an animal, just ordinary animals nearby, then okay, they don't come into camp, but they're nearby. There's something going on. The players may choose to interact. They may say, "Hey, oh, that sounds like deer. Let's get some extra meat." So they actively go hunting, right? Something that gives the players something to react to is the point, not necessarily that, oh, it's going to be a fight to drain their resources. And it could be a
mhm.
nothing burger. You're absolutely right. You roll that there's a big pack of wolves, then you also roll that, oh, the wolves say, oh, it's fire. They just go on. They just move on. But there's wolves in the area for that brief amount of time. What the players choose to do, most players will say, well, leave them be, right?
Mhm. And real quick, Quasi, it's called farmer strength. They don't have to look like Arnold to be able to do those things. Go back and look at your depression era folks who maybe didn't lift 600 pounds, but the the constant everyday toil uh, could could bump your strength up, and strength and con are actually tied to one another. The stronger you are, the more likely it is you could go on those marches, etc. That's why they do what they do in the military to make you stronger and have a higher con through the specific exercises, which are carrying a heavy load and walking all freaking day. Those things, you may not be all bulky, but you can still do the things. And yes, most people on the planet have never had a single 18 stat in anything. 99% of the people have never
Well, we're
even
not
had.
playing the game for the total hyper realism, but
Yeah, no, no, no. Especially AD&D. I mean,
yeah, no.
if you want those things, there are plenty of games that do those sorts of
That give you
things.
the real, yeah, no, absolutely.
Boot Hill, Top Secret. Just to go through TSR's catalog. Did
The
someone
the
say Hack
argument
Master?
stats make no sense is very valid, but that's not the point.
Uh, I played CNC. It uses EV, encumbrance value, or pounds slot. It is. It's a newer thing, Mike, or it's something Bloodwork made up. I don't know. I hate it. It's like, tell me how much it weighs, how much I can lift. I'll figure it out. If I have to, I don't mind doing the itemize this weighs this and do the math. You know what I mean? That's how we started out. There was no, you know, hand waving of this crap. We had to keep track of our arrows, our bullets, our rations, our water, etc. And if we couldn't carry the water, then we had to stay close to a water source. Or the cleric would have to, use up one of his first level spells to create food and water or whatever that was. We didn't just go 100 miles through the forest and not worry about any of those things. We did all the hard stuff, and now and not just now. It's been a thing for a while where people just don't want to keep track, and or they just don't, and then they get called on it, and they're like, it's too much work. And what are you going to do? You going to kill the character? Eject the player? A lot of times, DMs put up with a lot of crap in the old days just to keep players at the table. And, you know, I've seen it, for whatever reasons, especially when we were younger and it was the group of friends we hung out with every day. You know what I mean? It's like, what are you going to say? You can't come over? You know, then
I,
then you
as I get
then
older,
you
I'm getting to that point. It's like,
right. But back
you're not
then,
going to commit
you
to
know,
the game, then why are you here?
but what if that, oftentimes, that guy might be the ride, or that might be somebody's, girlfriend or boyfriend. There was social dynamics for
But
in-person games that
you
just meant you had to.
you are a player at that table too, and if you're getting frustrated, not having fun,
I'm certain
you
there
know,
was somebody who could do that at some point. There's probably just one guy. You could look it up. Uh, but again, we're talking a fantasy world where you know uh, everything should be different. The food, the plants, the air, the gravity. There could be any number of things that make some of these things feasible. Why magic works? Well, maybe because it orbits a red sun, like Krypton or some shit. You know what I mean? Um, it's your world. You should, if you have, like problems with those rules, you can find reasons why they would work, or you can make them not work. And write your
works
own
because
book.
the game we're playing. I don't need to justify it. This is the setting, and if you don't, if a player doesn't like the setting, it's like, all right, then I ask again, why are you here? If you don't like this game, I mean, it's just kind of a cardinal sin. I think the two major sins for a player to slag the game and slag the DM. It's like if you don't like the game, you don't like the DM, then why are you here? And the excuse that, well, you guys are my friends, that doesn't wash. We have other things we can do
Well,
together
back in the
that aren't
day,
this.
it was more of a thing. Back
Yeah,
in the
no,
day
I
when
understand. It's easier to
and
get
and I
players
think
now
that
for
some of
sure,
those
but
things uh, promoted bad habits and and fewer guardrails and fewer instances of gatekeeping. Quasi dexterity and agility are not the same thing, but Gygax simplified it because he didn't think that anybody in the Middle Ages actually did backflips and did those kinds of things, even if they were capable of doing it. The only people that ever did those things were like acrobats in like a circus or a jester. No one else did those things ever. It was unbecoming of a lady and a gentleman to do a backflip, right? Nobody did those things. They didn't even really, except in combat, ever move quickly unless, the Lord was cracking the whip on their back telling them to move faster. That sort of society just didn't do those things. It was the thief acrobat and comic books that brought that sort of mentality into traditional and even new wave sci-fi. Right, Omen? They soldiers are badass. There's a world of difference between the first Romans and the last Romans. Yeah, sure. Don't overthink RPGs too much. Grandma, that's all I think about. That's it. 24/7.
oh no,
As a
she's
matter of
think about them all the time. Just don't overthink about
fact, that's not possible. Um, it's funny. I keep remembering there was this girl I had a huge crush on in middle school, and on my yearbook, she wrote, "Don't stay in the dungeon too long." I never saw her again.
Because you stayed in the dungeon too long, dude.
It's okay. There were other girls, um, but you know, it was cute because she at least knew me that well. Which over the years has probably been better than many of the other women I've had relationships with. Lewis and Clark campaign of exploration was attacked by bears about 30 different occasions. One guy was attacked by three bears at once. I'm calling bullshit, or it was in the unlikely event that uh, that entire area of land for the entirety of history had never encountered men, and therefore maybe you could have that because one of the reasons why bears don't attack people or whatever is because they've had encounters with humans over thousands and thousands of years. So if you are going to a land that even the Indians didn't live in forever, then maybe. But here on Earth, it's so hard to find a place that humans haven't existed in one fashion or another. The buffalo. The buffalo's not a real creature. Shark attacks in the middle of the ocean that one time. Oh, it's so funny, but oh, sorry, tearing up on that one. Uh, yeah, I don't know about the history of Rome, guys. We didn't study that in school. It was really not a thing. Our 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 the mention of Rome in our history books was probably like a minor chapter because we had the entire history of the world to go through in one book in one semester, and then we go back to the same class and have it all over again. Zebra, you've got zebra. What do you live in? Animal country? Wild? What was it? Lion country safari? You guys remember that? You ever hear of that, Sean?
No.
Okay, back in the '70s, there was this park that's now Irvine
Oh,
Meadows,
African lion safari. Yeah, 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 yeah. They.
where they had a park that you could drive through in your car, and there were
Yep,
lions and
yep, yep, yep.
and, and
I remember the
my
ads. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You had to jog my memory there, but African lion safari. The people are coming.
we
The
we
people are
went there.
coming.
We went there, and there was a lion on the other
No, that
side of
was
our
my.
car. I
Yeah,
think there was a lion on our hood for a short period of time, looking in, like, "What the hell are you guys doing here? Don't you know we
I,
eat you guys?"
I read an
Um,
interesting factoid about park rangers in Africa and safaris and whatnot, and why the lions won't attack the people in the vehicles. But if you stray from the vehicle, they will pounce, and the idea is that they view the vehicle as a big animal, right? And anything on the vehicle is like, no, we can't risk the attack.
mhm.
I don't know if there's validity. I didn't do a deep dive, but it was an interesting thought to me. And so anybody any human on the big vehicles, like, no, the lions won't do it. But that's why you don't leave the vehicle, right? Even if it's an open, like, top Jeep, kind of something like that, where you'd be easily accessible. They see the vehicle as an animal that can repel them and can cause them harm, so they stay
dude,
away.
dude, if you're gonna keep talking to my guests like that, you're not gonna come back. Gotcha. We don't talk to each other like that. Um, what we all know is completely different from what each other knows. And what you heard on the internet is different from what I heard on the internet. And you can't prove anything unless you're going to, like send me links on my Discord, which, even then is suspect. So keep it polite, okay?
Well, the point he made about the D&D stats is like, okay, that's fine, but we need a metric for the game purpose. It's like, I'm not looking for hyper realism. I'm just looking for a metric that I can apply in game.
Sorry,
So
Grandma.
comparing to real world feats, well, there's always going to be the outlier. There's always going to be something that happened or didn't happen in the real world that defies the rules of the game. But the rules of the game are for the purpose of resolving conflicts and whatnot in the game.
Yeah. Yes, buffalo's not a real creature. What's up, Coochie? Yeah, yeah. That's what I was saying about uh, farmer strength. It's a real thing, and it's not just farms, but like I got a friend who's 165 pounds, looks completely you know unimpressive, but I've seen him freaking toss a water heater on his shoulder like it was nothing,
Right.
because he does it and has done it every day for 35 years, all day, multiple times a day. Uh,
There are stories about my great grandfather who was like ridiculous, like Jean Valjean level strength, and the big one that got circulated in the early 1900s was when he was working on a railroad and made a bet that he could carry 700 pounds worth of tack and gear 100 yards, right? And then they pile it on him, and he did it 100 yards. I think it was 710 pounds of stuff. It was like crazy. Now there was
yep.
100 yards. That wasn't carrying that for a full day. That's for sure.
I don't know what those are at the moment. Yeah, and uh, again, we're we're making up fantasy characters for the most part. We want them to be bigger than life. Otherwise, that's why I bummed out on Dragon Slayer, because you're just playing the average Joe. Well, why am I adventuring then? The whole idea of adventuring, which is kind of a made up term for the hobby, um, kind of, uh, was because you were above and beyond somehow. Maybe it was only one stat, but the average Joe doesn't go out, doing those things. They're perfectly fine, in their lot in life. That's why the Middle Ages, if you will, lasted so long. The Dark Ages. That's why humanity stayed somewhat stagnant, for a long period of history, because most people were perfectly content with their lot in life, and that was not going off into the woods with a backpack full of gear looking for a dungeon and gold. There aren't like a lot of
Well,
stories,
there were always fortune seekers in any age, any
but
generation.
like the percentages we use, they weren't
Yeah.
there
Well,
weren't a
there
lot.
weren't. How many ancient ruins where there's bound to be lots of gold? Were there or are
Mhm.
there? So
The gold rush is a perfect example here.
yeah. Well, that's not. That's mining though. That's a mineral that was always being sought after. That wasn't delving into a trap laden complex.
They can be fun, but the fun for me with that particular mentality died out about 10 years into the hobby. Okay, playing the unlikely hero, the guy with nines straight down the line.
Yeah.
There's no
No,
fun in that after a
I
while. It's like I'm
I
going to die.
agree with
I'm just waiting for
I
the,
agree with
the
Floofy Cat though. I think there's a place. I mean, it's worth playing average characters. I'm not a DM who says, okay, we're only playing average characters. You get an 18, you're out, and I'm also not the
no,
opposite.
no,
No, everybody has to have a minimum. You roll what you roll, and
right.
but I found that the people who get those average characters and like, oh, I got to play this, and then they do it begrudgingly, and they end up loving their average character. That is usually the outcome. It's not a guarantee, but and
Right, but
because ultimately, especially the way D&D is structured, your level of experience is more important than your stats. And if you get to a
mhm,
high enough level of experience, your core, your baseline skills, all that will
mhm,
be more than enough to cover you through the adventures. You don't need those bonuses. That
mhm,
the bonuses really only help on those low levels when those few points make the difference. But
mhm.
if I have a 10th level fighter of average stats, I don't care. Like, oh my god, this
Yeah,
guy.
you can always nope out of the freaking 10th level dungeon and go, hey, are there any like 6th level dungeons around? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
absolutely
Right?
can.
And in which case I'm a freaking superhero, because I've got 47 hit points and everything in the dungeon's got like 20. Yeah, show me the way to that. Yeah, I'm not going in the dragon cave, but you're 10th level, yeah, but
Who
I'm
cares? Yeah, I don't.
I'm all nines down the
I don't.
line. Screw
I
that.
don't force my players down the road generally. I mean,
Right.
the exception obviously being we're doing Night Below, as you know, and that one
Mhm,
set for a certain level. But at the same time, I mean, the players, I would hope they know. I try to remind
mhm,
them that, you
mhm,
know, their fates are in their hands. If they decide that this is too much for them, they're free to leave. They're free to nope out and go where they want.
mhm,
Um, personally, I want to see it seen through. It'd be a great boon for my show where, let's
mhm,
get the whole arc finally completed. But, I'm not going to, that's not forced on them. And if they say this is too much for us, we're going elsewhere, then so be it. I will adapt.
mhm.
And yeah, to the same effect, that 10th level warrior is like, you know what? I feel like playing on
Okay.
easy mode today. Let's go to the Goblin Warren around the corner instead of the Dragon Lair up the mountain.
Oaken Owl, I don't know who you are. Can you turn your camera on before I let you in?
Sorry,
Okay,
I
now.
must have mistyped it. That's all.
Hey,
Hey,
But no,
you know the history of the show. You know
no, no.
I have to be
I'm laughing
right,
because
Grandma. You were there.
I'm
Stay
laughing
awesome,
because
Grandma.
but no, I decided to take the rest of the day off, so, um, so I'm headed back to my car, and that's why I'm talking on here. I'm getting much better reception than yesterday. So
Well, Dino, sometimes the party will gang up on the DM and say, "No, we're not doing this shit. We're going back to town, and we'll wait until something a little easier comes along. We've sacked up enough gold. We're kicking it. When a rumor comes along that's more to our liking, we're doing it. That 100-mile trudge through the desert to the dungeon pyramid that the GM just wrote up doesn't sound like a fun idea for us. You know what I mean, I personally love that shit. Freaking
yeah,
pyramid. Oh
to
yeah,
me, but to me, that's fine. That's the players playing. That's like, you know what? This is above us.
exactly.
We can't do that just because the DM spent time on it doesn't obligate us, right?
Hmm. Yeah. I back in the day we didn't know we could even do that. It took a while for us to learn some of those things because there was no internet, and when the game shop that we played at closed down, there was no way to you know come up with new ideas except bouncing them off each other. No, I've told you, Quasi. Um, um, if I allow resurrection, uh, it's it just breaks the game. There's no way you can lose.
Well, it
Um,
depends on how common it is. Um, even if a high level cleric has access to raise dead, like there's an attrition. Yeah, you keep coming back, but you're a con point less. So I mean, it's going to have a
but
certain
why
level
would
of
the gods
rarity.
bring you back? Like I was talking about the gods. The gods know things. Okay, they can see your future, um, or at least part of it. And wouldn't they know that you're just going to die from that trap that you failed the saving throw next week? It's too much. Sure thing. Isn't it in the chat there, Cold Iron? If it's not, let me know. Um, here's the thing. It's there's got to be a way to lose, so to speak, right? If
Sure,
you're playing a game, and if
but I
there
don't
is
think you
none,
need
if
to.
you can always come
I don't
back
think you
in.
need to control. I mean, I get the idea that people want the game to be lethal and whatnot. I mean, resurrection and raised dead are part of the game at its core.
Mm-hmm,
If characters have access to it, they have access to it. If not, then they don't. That's just the way it goes. During this one period in my game last year, we set it during the time of troubles in Arabelle, where canonically Lady Timora shows up, and one of the main characters was a priest of Timora. It was like, so they had access to the good stuff for a very short period of time. I'm like, I'm not going to just say no for no reason, but a
well,
bunch of characters actually got
I'm
resurrected.
saying no for a shit ton of reasons. Right off the
Well,
bat,
So
it goes against my
let me
religious
finish my point.
beliefs.
The point was, and to what you were saying, like when it comes to the gods, Lady Tamora wasn't just handing out resurrections willy nilly. She did it for a purpose. The people who were resurrected were done so under the deal that they converted to her faith. They're now her warriors,
Mhm.
right? So there's reason, there's rhyme and reason, but on the flip side of that, it's like that's not a situation that is always going to be there. That organically
Mhm.
came together the way my campaign just happened to go. I didn't say, okay, well this is a resource available to you all the time. It just happened that way. Now they're in a place where there's nothing. They have no resurrections, so they have to be extra careful.
Mhm.
That's again the way that the shift of the campaign went. So I'm not of the mind that you need to artificially restrict it from a game perspective, but at the same time, you don't need to be handing it out like candy. And Raised Dead is
Mhm.
going to be the more common form of that. And Raised Dead costs you a con point every time you're brought back from the dead. On
Yep.
top of which, con has a resurrection survival chance. There's a chance you don't come back at all and you're permanently dead. So it's already
Mhm.
baked in. All of the odds are already baked in. And so if a player has access to a priest who can raise him, great, let it happen. Let the consequences fall where they may. Priesthoods
Mhm.
aren't just going to be doing it willy nilly. It's like, oh, you want me to raise your buddy from the dead? Well, guess what? I need a service done, and it's going to be dangerous, right? You don't
Yep.
just pay a diamond and have a poof. There can be other things that can mitigate it, but also leave it as an available option, especially for a character who you've had or players had for a while, and it's like, okay, we don't necessarily want this character out, but there's going to be consequences that aren't necessarily permanent death.
there are
And
other parts too for resurrection, which is the god has to approve whatever spells you have. Which, to be fair,
exactly. And why is the
no
God going
one,
to approve someone of
unless
a
you're a
different faith?
worshiper,
A
unless you're
reward
a
for
worshiper,
service, because
What service?
especially at the late level, you even get access to resurrection. I mean, most players are even thinking about retiring that character anyway. So why not
Well,
just let
yeah,
them
right.
have
But
it?
how does a priest of, let's say, Odin, right, resurrect this other guy who's at best a follower of someone else, but not a worshiper of Odin? Let's just
the, the,
just
well,
insert
this is
whatever
what
name. It doesn't matter. Why
this is
would I
what the role
resurrect
playing.
this guy who's never done
That
shit for me?
that's exactly it. That's the whole point of you know. There's a difference between the mechanics and the way that you should also look at it. Which I know
Mhm.
we talked about paladins and things. Paladins are not the most restrictive. If you actually read the Dungeon Master's Guide, clerics are, and people ignore it. People let clerics do
Mhm.
whatever they want, but if you read it, the cleric has to follow all of the same treatises. Otherwise, they don't get spells. If their
Mhm.
alignment changes, they may have to switch gods. If they do it twice, they automatically die. I mean,
Yeah,
but people don't
apostasy's
read.
got penalties for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other part is you still have to follow all the strictures. So whatever the paladin has to follow, the cleric is supposed to follow and do more. Okay, guy, it's a green light. Do not pull in front of me from the left-hand lane. Uh, anyway, sorry.
Okay. I don't know what you're talking about in Dune, Quasi. Game of Thrones. Never read it. Lord of the Rings. Um, Gandalf didn't come back from the dead. He was a freaking angel. He was never really a mortal to begin with. So,
Glorfindel. There's several others that come back from the dead,
was that in the
and
Silmarillion?
no, Glorfindel was actually in. No, he was the one that saved Frodo being chased by the ringwraiths.
I'm not remembering that. Real quick, yes, there are worse things you can do than killing them. But I don't really know that many stories where people come back from the dead in fantasy. Um,
There are a
Whoa.
few.
I'm sure there
But
are, but I can't
yeah.
think of any.
Here, and I agree with you on this, which is the problem that 5e has and stuff. Is and my friend hates this, where players just bounce back and forth. Oh, you're down, you come back up, and it kind of feels much more like a video game than it does, like a world. And I think that's what we're all talking about. Is I don't like a lot of resurrection. I want it to be meaningful. I want them to
Right.
come back and say, well, look, this person died or something like that. Can you bring them back? Yes, but you have to go on a quest to find all these items to bring them back, and then the god has to bless off on it. And it, and it
Right,
makes
it's an
it
opportunity. It's a full
right.
opportunity for story and role
This
playing.
this one's easy. Why would a cleric ever heal someone of another faith? To prove that their God's faith works miracles, and if you serve this God,
Wait a
you
minute.
too could,
Wait, 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 wait.
benefit from
What?
more of such miracles.
What? Okay. I'm sorry here. You used an example previously talking about cleric of Odin, whatnot, okay? And you just asked, why would a cleric heal anyone else of another faith? Maybe
Well, that's
because
just
they're
one of many
good?
reasons.
Like
Yeah,
the
there's a
Well,
lot of
monks
reasons.
who went into Germania and some were tortured to death, and somebody had to
I have
have the
no
balls to
idea
go
what you're
talk to
talking
the.
about.
Well,
I have no
so
idea what you're talking about.
if we're
I
going
don't
to
do
talk about
history. You're using a historical
okay,
reference I have no knowledge of, and it
so
sounds like you're going in a completely different direction.
No, it's
no
you
no 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 no
literally
no
said,
keep
why would a cleric heal someone else of another faith?
yeah.
Because
I,
they're good.
I mean, you can find it in the
Because
Right.
Bible if nothing else. I mean, the other
Yeah.
part is
Um,
if you look at the rules, we're going to talk about rules as written. The
mhm.
first two levels of spells really come from the cleric themselves.
Themselves,
Right.
It's
yeah. They
not from their god. It's at the higher levels that it comes from the god, which means
Is it third and up that they actually have to pray? I thought it was fourth.
no
third to
no
five, they
yeah
have to, an emissary of the god has to grant the spell. Level 6 and 7 spells, it's the god directly in AD&D. These are AD&D rules. I mean,
yeah
other
right.
systems.
And players, and to be fair, since we're doing this, most DMs don't ever play with that. But the reality of it is you don't get to pick your spells. Your god picks your spells every day, or the emissary picks the spells. You can
Well,
request them,
more
but
often than not, you'll get what you requested. But yeah, that's the DM's
Yeah,
opportunity to
and
say, you
don't
know what,
forget, don't forget
I know
Cold
what's
Iron.
coming. You're getting this spell instead. Yeah.
Right, like look at it this way. You've got a group of characters together, right? They're on a mission,
all
right?
right.
They're on a mission. They're working together, right? The gods are watching this mission being performed, working together, because they can do that. That's their TV. They're watching this group. When it's on, they'll watch it, right? And they're watching them work together to achieve some goal. If they didn't want them to work together, they would say, "Don't work together. Go, leave the party," which they're not going to do because then you don't have a game because player X just got ostracized and everybody watched you kick them out of the game for that reason. So they're working together, and if they're working together, they've got to work together. That's going to include binding of wounds and, oh, hey, wait, I got a cure light wound and you're at like 2 hit points, and we know we got a long trek to go, and we could kind of use another fighter in the party. So here you go, cure light wounds.
yeah. Well, and again, those first and second level spells come from the cleric themselves, so they can choose
Mhm.
in how to do that. But
But even
you know,
so, I mean,
yeah,
your faith will
yeah.
will define whether or not you're going to heal. Like, okay, if you're an evil cleric and it's like, all right, I'll heal you, but cough up. Or you might curry favor
This
against the
first,
big strong guy in the group. Yeah,
this
I'm gonna keep the strong guy alive because he's going to keep me alive.
Mhm.
But to your other points, like, yeah, I'll
this
heal because I'm a good guy and you're hurting. I want to heal you. That's also a valid reason.
Also,
Um,
if the rules are left open about it, doesn't it just ultimately boil down to a DM who wants to be arbitrary just to be arbitrary?
What do you
Like
right.
mean in
like if
regards
the
to what
rules
specifically?
like for example in third edition and 3.5 about how it is very specific and clear about what you can and cannot do under certain cleric domains, this deity no more than this much alignment shift,
Yeah, I
etc.
don't know. Never read
Yeah,
those books.
yeah, in earlier editions a lot of it is left up
has
to
that.
the DM. So if the DM just decides the gods are angry, oh, you can't do this, I don't know, maybe just let things be if they're doing a good thing.
Well, you want to, I mean, I guess it's really based on any given campaign or context too. So that's why that flexibility is mandatory. But yeah, sometimes DMs will impose their own point of view, and that can be bad. But if you are a cleric of a domain that is all about the healing and ending of suffering, that even if somebody who is an evil scumbag is suffering, well, your domain says we want to end suffering, so I will heal that evil person because that's my belief, right? But that
Well,
person, that
I,
cleric who now turns and
yeah.
says, "No, you have committed evil. I'm not going to aid your suffering. I'm going to enjoy your suffering. Now that's openly defying the tenets
Mhm.
of that particular belief, and so that might
Yeah.
be penal, right?
I'm going to mention the other part is when you say arbitrary. Arbitrary is when you act differently every time. If and
Yeah,
I'm
like
going to
on
use this
whim.
for a little bit different. Yeah, that's on whim. But if I'm consistent, that is not arbitrary, and
Yeah, for
that's a
example,
different.
Cold Iron Omen's in my game, where I don't allow Resurrect as a spell.
Like at
There
all,
are a
like
few,
clicks just don't have access to it at all, or
Correct.
absolutely
Correct.
100%.
wow.
Correct.
One, I'm a
Well,
Christian
no,
and
we haven't
I
died
don't
that
like
much.
doing it, and all my players are cool with that. Two, for so many, I've seen two. Every
We
game
have
I've
ways
ever
to
seen with
mitigate it, to be
Resurrect
fair.
has made a mockery of that kind of magic. That's like literally like the most powerful magic of all, next to Wish. Okay, it's the most powerful thing, and to throw it in even once, just
Even with
it
spell
changes.
component requirements.
It changes the game entirely. Now, what I do though, because it is a game, and I do know that players need to be able to continue. There's a spell from Unearthed Arcana called Death's Door, and it brings you back from like -20 or 30, which is dead, right? Let's not beat around the bush, right? It's if you get to the guy in time, you use Death's Door, he could be like -18 or whatever, right? Which like
No,
somebody.
if I remember correctly, Death Star, they still have to be alive. They can't be dead. But what it does is it takes that critical condition state and makes them mobile for a short amount of time,
I
and
thought it
brings
was
them
it brought it back literally from multiple.
No, they have to be at death's door. So if you're using the -10 rule and they're bleeding out, then death's door works. If they're already dead, they're gone. Death's door doesn't work.
I could have
It just
I'm
sworn
going
gives
to
them
bring this
mobility.
much.
It gives them mobility, puts them back up into to zero, so they're not bleeding out anymore, and it gives them mobility for a short amount of time, so that they can get somewhere safe. That's all it does.
I'm going
It's
to
still
bring up a
very
couple of
effective.
things.
If you're using
yeah,
the death's door rules, it's a great spell. If you're not using it, then it's meaningless.
Well,
right.
I'm going to bring up two things because I play in Shadow's game. One is we have ways to mitigate it. Number two
Yep.
is while he makes dangerous, he doesn't make it overly deadly. I am probably much more of a stickler for deadliness than he is. And even then, as long as everyone knows what you're doing, it's not a huge deal. As long as you know that's what's going on. And then the other part is I've had one of my characters die and come back. We've had one of the other players die. One of the other characters, not players, die, and we brought him back. And now I think we're out of any of those resurrection
And mind
things.
you, one was an item that did specifically that, and I told him you're never going to find another one of these. The other one was
You
actually
just
a
outright told them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he told us. Well, no. I mean, to be
yeah.
fair,
Well,
none
it
of the stuff
literally
he did.
says in the item description there's X number of these in existence, and if
Oh,
you
okay.
It's
and
in
Told
the
the
them
other
by
fine
that
thing
print.
was
You have to use a
resource. Okay.
magnifying glass.
right.
And,
The other
and
one
to,
was literally like kind of like a time travel magic that may that makes one thing that happened to you not happen to you.
so I had both of
So
them. To be
it's
fair,
it's
and one of the
different
players did
magic,
that.
and I know it's semantics, and it's all in the title. But with that in mind, people they play differently and they play more
Yep.
realistically, and they don't just fall back on the well. You can just bring me back. I that to me just ruins all sense of immersion for me. That they're just going to come back. They're going to
To
do
be
crazy
what
stuff that they wouldn't
well,
do otherwise.
and first off, and this is what's important. It's not like he didn't tell us at the beginning of the game.
Yep.
And that's fine. And we've lost far more players than we have player characters. That's just that. I mean, if you include their player characters, that would be included in there. But we start off with what 9, 10 players.
Yep.
We're down to 4.
After what
After
plus
this is the
years?
4th year. This is the 4th year now, and actually, it's literally we've been playing for 3.5 years. And as much as he talks about high-level campaigns, as much as I bitch about experience, the reality of it is that all of us are 12th to 13th level. So and that seems to be pretty standard for going up. So
Mhm.
I'm not saying that it's as much as he talks about players don't want to do this. I'll be honest. I would love domain level games. most of the players aren't into that. They kind of get an idea, but they're not, and it's a lot of paperwork. It's a different style of game. I would love to have that. And I think that on average, it takes about 2 years to get players up to a domain level game, if you want to start from the beginning. But yeah, it just depends on how often you make deft and how trivialized you want to make it. And gold is really the biggest limiting factor for AD&D. Until you get to high level, you don't get a lot of gold.
You're not wrong, Causey.
Yeah, I mean that's just the if you look at if you do training rules, you're generally making 2 times as much gold as what is required to get a level until about 6th level. That's just that's just the way it's intended. Which he's
Speaking of which, Shadow, do you keep with the gold for experience, or did you do away with that?
Here I was talking to was it
because I was on one show where you were talking about bending over and picking up a gold piece. I thought that was funny.
Here's the thing: if I were to take off the XP for any one item, like say I don't give XP for magic, well then it would be it would only be fair to then make the experience point tables easier to go up because I've taken 1/3 or 1/4 of all the possible ways of earning experience points and removed them from the game. So shouldn't I then also make every level 25% easier to attain? Or am I just making it harder to make it harder because I can't handle the players going up levels as fast as they would fair and square?
I'm going to bring up one thing here, and I'm not disagreeing with Shadow's point of view on that. To be fair, he also included the experience points that you could find in 2E, hey, if you do your class thing, in some cases.
And that's
I don't have a problem with people going up a level. They're, the bigger they are, the harder they fall is my motto. Go up levels. I don't care. If you want to start a game where everybody's 10th level, let's do that. I'm cool with that. We started at first level. You're going to get XP for kills, gold. Now, mind you, that's gold you earn in some fashion. If you just stumble into a hole and there's 10,000 gold pieces, no, you didn't do shit. You got lucky. That's the reward. But if you kill monsters and they got gold and you take it, that's earning it. If you steal it, that's earning it. Fair and square. Just like we got this country. We stole it. Fair and square.
We did not steal it.
So
there's a big difference.
Conquest is not theft.
We conquered.
I have to use my skills to get the gold, right? Well, what if one of my skills is luck, and luck found that gold for me? How come I'm not getting the XP? You're cheating me, man. You're cheating me.
What skill is luck? I want to see that. Where's that
skills, buddy?
Luck is not a power for anyone that saw Deadpool 2. Luck is not a power. I really enjoyed that. No, I think that people forget of when you're playing. Again, it's not that I have a problem with changing an XP. It's what are the expectations before I come into the game. If you tell me a game is hardcore and then you play 5e and you play by all the rules and you're, then I feel cheated. If you also tell me that we're going to play, magic, fairies that are almost impossible to kill, and then you keep on killing off the characters, I'm going to get pissed off because you have done a bait and switch on me when we started playing. It's the same thing. As much as we joke about it, I enjoyed the Alien game that we played, but everyone kind of knew that they were probably going to die at the end. That was.
But I mean, you have to at some point, even to Divine Ascend, you have to die. So it's not really the detriment that you thought it was, right? But you got to get there. And like Owen said, I told everybody what they were in for. Like I told them, like it's a water world. There's like almost no land on the planet. There is, but almost none. So I'm going to start you all off with the free swimming proficiency. So there's no reason to be like super scared. And then they're whining about, well, we can't wear our armor because but nobody else is wearing armor either. I just made the game that much easier for all of you. You run into pirates, they're running around in skivvies and a bandana just like you, okay?
Skivvies.
Think about it, right? In a water world,
Well, I mean, again, it's like everything else.
I literally,
Everyone has
it was like blew my
expectation.
mind how much they whined about that. You remember?
No, I don't
Especially
remember
the
doing that. Well,
dwarves.
to be fair, what was I playing? I was playing a gnome illusionist and a magic user, so armor was not an issue for me. But but no, I mean, again,
Dude,
if
I don't know if
players,
you're serious or not, but if you're going to keep talking like that, I'm going to ask you to never come back. It's not. It's not an adversarial thing. It's not
no,
us versus them. You know what I mean? What are you talking about? Uh,
I just,
when is that
I
ever
mean,
going to happen? Are you going to suddenly like come into my game with your 50th level god character and challenge me to a duel? What the fuck are you talking about, dude? It's
oh,
That's not how it's that's the exact
I,
opposite of how the game should be played.
and I'm going to bring this much. It's the journey that matters.
What's up,
We've
LJ?
had one guy who is what he's retired two or three characters and come back. People
Yep.
forget that
Mhm.
at least until ninth level, it takes you as long to go up one level as it does to go through the first nine. And you can, and in some ways that's a lot more fun because when you get in the higher levels, you're kind of like, well, I can do this or that.
People come and go.
Yeah,
That's
it's
that's life. Some people had to leave the game for health reasons, financial reasons, because there were gaping assholes and uh, needed to be ejected from the game. uh, you meet all kinds in this hobby, just like anywhere else. And the people that have stuck around, they appear to be having a good time. That's what matters. And I put them through shit on a regular basis. Yes, I gold for XP rules, gold for kills, gold for magic. I mean XP for kills, XP for magic items, XP for doing unusual things as bonuses, or at the end of the like a little cherry on top for completing the quest or the story arc or what have you. um, it
I'm
doesn't.
gonna. All systems use XP to encourage players to do certain things. Doesn't matter what system it is. If I play Numenera, you get experience points for exploration, not for exploration, learning new things. I said, okay. If you get it for D&D, and people forget, the gold for XP encourages players not to fight everything, which is the problem that you have with 2E and later, where the
In
majority of it.
theory, in
Oh,
Well,
theory.
no,
Yes.
no. Well, I mean, if the players choose not to follow, then any XP, that's on them. But the reality of it is that 2E gave most experience on combat, and it changed the whole game because of that. Whereas, I'm going to use Axe, which are fine. I have, like I said, of all the versions I like, Axe I like the best. But Axe specifically says that and I think it's a good rule of thumb. It's about you should have 1/4, XP for monsters, and then about 3/4 for the for treasure. And that it's like, oh, okay, which encourages players to look for treasure too. You don't have to put treasure every. I mean, if I put up a statue, a gold statue, or the old, the famous player's handbook at the very beginning, where they're trying to pry the gems out of the eyes,
Mm-hmm.
that the gems are worth far more than the monsters. So if I can get a monster somewhere else and move him away, fantastic. I don't have to
Mm-hmm.
fight the 50
Yeah, the
hill
lizard men are
giants.
worth like 27 each, with that 500,000 gold piece gem in each eyeball. And yes, back in the day, there's this module called by Warriors, one of the first three modules ever made. In one dungeon, there's three or four 500,000 gold piece gems, okay, as treasure. Uh, and that's I knew that's 1970 blah blah blah,
Sure.
era. There's no limit to what can be done and what can be had, and if your group says yeah, well there was only three 500,000 gold piece gems, it was kind of a weak dungeon.
Only.
Believe it or not, there were entire groups and communities that had those kind of insane, ridiculous characters and situations back in the early days. And over the years, we have changed. Okay, Quasi, I didn't say there were no, or maybe I did, but I meant There are very few. If a bear attacks you, it's not for food. It's because probably you startled it, or it's protecting its young. They don't just go after humans like that. There are far like 100 to 1 bear encounters versus bear attacks. It's very rare. All of the animals in North America avoid us more often than they attack us.
I
It's
don't know, man. I was in Atlanta and I got felt up by a lot of bears.
Are you
You
yeah,
talking
but
went to
it's
the
that
kind of
you went to
bears?
the
mustache, dude.
wrong
It's that
I
bar.
mean,
mustache. I
dude, the
keep telling them about
ATL
that
is
mustache.
full of bears, especially on Labor Day weekend, and they are grabby and they do attack.
I mean, at the end of the day, like everything else is you want to encourage players to do what you, I mean, a system or your DM will encourage players to do kind of the game they want to play. Um, and the players will play the game into the way that they want to play. And hopefully you can find a nice happy medium. And if people who want to get into that's why we have all these different systems and games and everything else. It really doesn't matter as long as everyone's having fun. If I'm playing Twilight 2000, I want gritty realism. I do. If I'm playing AD&D, I want heroic. And that's why when people are trying to compare the two, you can do it, but it doesn't feel the same. Uh, it's it, that's what and then some games, and we'll see if I can get this up and running, but if I can get the Mutant Crawl Classics, I know it's completely gonzo. It's going to be tongue-in-cheek. I expect players to die or characters to die left and right, but the other part is what can I do to mitigate it? And this is the other thing that I liked about, we're talking about 1E in this case with
Mm-hmm.
Oriental Adventures. If you got enough honor, your next character got bonuses to their stats.
What?
Yeah, if you read it, for every 10 honor that you had over the base honor that you had, your stat went up by your next character stat would go up by 1. Whatever stat that you want, you apply them however you want. And that says okay. And I kind of like that in some ways. I like how Axe does it, where if a play, Willie wish this is the way I like it, because then you don't start at the very beginning. Guess what? You can have what's called reserve XP. Okay, fine. You die heroically, but what you did is you basically did what Conan did, where you spent all your money, you don't know where it went, or they could do a heroic funeral, and that really encourages players to really just say, "I'm going to go all out. If I die, I die." And you're like, okay, but I don't come back as a first level, because first through third level is not that much fun. It's fun when you first play, and I think it's important to play those if you've never played Dungeons and Dragons before. But once you've played for a long time and you kind of master the rules, start them at sixth level or seventh level. They know how to do it, but I think people forget about that, and I don't want to be punishing the players, and I don't want them to be a liability either. Uh, hey guys, I start off at first level, and I know you all want to go to this big dungeon, but you got to like farm me for like the first 2 or 3 dungeons so I can get out of here, so I can go adventure with you.
Oh, you'd hate my game. I don't mind the level disparity.
No worries.
We got rookies coming in all the time, and they level up pretty
Mhm.
fast.
Well,
But I
that's what it is.
also do
But
a
but but
I
but
also
they
do
do
a
level
troop
up.
style. So
Well, I mean, they level up fast, but I'll be honest. Is at that point, it's like, hey, well, yeah, but we'll take you in other areas for a while,
Mhm.
maybe for a couple of sessions, so you hit that third level. At third level,
Don't
you're
worry
you're
about it,
kind of
Cold
tougher, and
Iron.
then you move on. Um,
Come back and come back. Yeah, it was weird. I saw a lot of that back in the day, but then there came a point where you never saw that again. You know what I mean?
which part?
Um, People bringing in first levelers to higher level groups. I guess mostly because we stopped getting an influx of players, and my group of about 20 people had, you know, each player had like 2 to 5 characters, and they were all kind of around the same level, so there wasn't this big gap like like 5 levels or anything like that. Um, so it stopped being a thing. Um, I honestly really haven't thought about it in a long time because it's like like with my AD&D game, like when one of our players wanted to retire his two characters because they got married to go have kids. He wanted to keep playing, so I just had him roll up an appropriate level character because there was no way anything else would have made sense. You know, running a first level character is just not going to make it in an eighth level game.
Or what happens is that players basically are doing nothing while they try farming this character up, which apparently they
Right.
don't do. And I think a lot of people, what when we're talking about certain things, and whether it's a paladin or other stuff, certain character classes prevent people from playing other games. Which to me, that's kind of why people don't like paladins. Hey, you're limiting
Well,
what other characters I can play. No, I mean it's true.
you're absolutely right, but um, it's what do you call it? You know, to be honest, I mean, it's kind of on the GM, isn't it? It's like, hey, so and so wants to run a paladin. Okay,
Well, it's up
well, we don't want a
like
paladin in the
everything
party.
else.
We want to be a bunch of murder hobos. And the
Well,
GM's like, well, I really kind of want a paladin in the party because I want you guys to kind of actually not be a bunch of freaking asshat murder hobos. So maybe having some moral freaking fortitude and a little goodness shine through every once in a while might not be a bad idea instead of the pretty much chaotic evil characters you run pretending to be chaotic neutral.
well, I mean, for me, a lot of this really comes down to, and I've heard different things from players. Hey, look, I've had a hard day at work. I've been frustrated. I just want to like bash things. Okay, fine. At least I know what game. Like everything else, this is why you kind of, when we talk about gatekeeping, you gatekeep both ways. Hey, this game isn't for me, and the other part
Mm-hmm.
is hey, the I don't want to run this game. I mean, it works both ways. Is that
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
that's why when I used
Well, I mean,
to hear,
I
well, you
mean,
can't
if you
keep
look
people
at it,
out, it's like, of course you do.
if you look at AD&D, with the exception of the assassin, right? It is kind of geared
Yeah.
toward a good line party with the paladin and the ranger, a third of the monks, and you know, ostensibly most of the gods and the deities and demigods
I actually
book that
kind of
are.
disagree.
You
AD&D
think?
doesn't skew. No, it doesn't skew. It doesn't skew in any direction. It just lays out the systems. Like, here are your options, and like the assassin is just as valid as the
Maybe not
paladin.
skew, but encourage.
Not until second ed.
The
Second ed
modules
very
did.
clearly skews to the heroic bent, but I think
You think
first ed
so?
was more about just laying out the world and saying, here is the system, here is the world, here are your options. Go to it. Go forth, my
So
children, and see what you can build. So it doesn't.
I don't know. I mean,
so
mathematically,
The,
there's
the
only one
DMG.
specific evil character and one the evil monk,
Well,
which is
the
1/3.
I'm talking in
You see
terms
what I'm
of what
saying?
it's encouraging you to play. Like the ranger was sort of the Aragorn archetype. The paladin is the knight of the round table archetype. So he just presented those
Mm-hmm.
archetypes. So coincidentally, there happen to be more devoted good archetypes. But the game itself doesn't
Mm-hmm.
encourage or discourage evil or good play. It just simply says, here are your options. Make it.
It definitely allowed for evil with
I,
the inclusion of the assassin, the evil monk, and evil thieves,
so
and anybody else that could be any
It
alignment.
neither encouraged nor
Absolutely.
discouraged. It just said, this is how the reactions will come. This is how things, like, even if you look at the reaction tables, like the reaction tables for alignment, you'll get a bonus against lawful good because people are more trusting of lawful good. So you could argue that there's an encouragement there, but it's just laying out the information. It's not telling you what you should play. It's just saying, this is the math of what you play, as opposed to you should play this because it's morally good.
so I'm going to bring up a little bit different for this, which is the modules encouraged you, but the system itself doesn't encourage one way or the
Certainly
other.
that'd be true.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
There was no place for evil in most of the modules, at least through 1E. Everything I
yeah,
read for 2E, I was highly
Well,
disappointed in the
2E
modules.
did specifically aim towards heroic fantasy because
Well, yeah,
they
yeah, because it took
the
out
satanic. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It
well, they just renamed everything. Everything got
Well,
reskinned.
no,
If
but
you
the
actually
books
look at it,
actually
they still left it the
encourage
same.
good play.
Yeah.
Like they had. I can't
Mhm.
cite you
Well,
now, but
and not just that, but the some of the other things. It took out the assassin. That alone, it was them saying, "Yeah, we don't want to
right.
encourage murder for money, which
Well,
is
we say that,
fine.
but then they put in the assassin into the thief character kit. My and
Where?
again,
The splat books.
right,
Oh,
yeah, the splat books. So
of course they did.
it's well,
Because they did everything
that's
in splat books.
well. I mean, if you start looking at everything that's
Mhm.
going in there, and some of them were the Ravenloft had. There were certain things though, and this is from my as
Oh
a
yeah,
DM.
Ravenloft was
It,
fantastic. I'm wearing my
I
Ravenloft shirt.
I gotta dip out,
well see,
guys.
I love
Sorry, I
Dark
gotta
Sun because
deal with stuff. So I
okay,
was
go
gonna say
ahead,
goodbye now,
Sean.
and we'll talk. We'll chat soon.
Okay, no worries. I'm gonna shut her down in about 15 minutes. But always good to hang out with you, man. Have a great
We'll
day.
talk D&D soon.
I, I'm gonna I'm gonna bring up the other part too, which is as a DM, if the characters, what is their motivation to help or to do something? That's my biggest
Right.
issue.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Everybody at one point or another that I know of, for the most part, has run that evil campaign. I
Yeah,
ran one for 15 fucking. But you know what happened? You know what happened. They all
yeah.
decided good at the end. You never have a
Well,
good game where everybody decides to be evil and it go anywhere. You know what I mean? But
well,
at
well,
least with
well, what,
the opposite
what I
arc,
mean is
you got a really
is
nice bow to tie on the end of the campaign, right?
but
The other
but
one, the other way
but
around, it's like everybody quits because the DM
yeah.
freaking finally freaking you know did his job and said, "You guys are evil. Live with it." Oh, well, fuck you. We're out. Okay, fine. You're still
No,
evil,
no. My real point
right?
is as a what is their motivation? Usually, the motivation is I just want levels,
Mhm.
and that only works for so long in a game. Um,
Right, right. Because then they get so hard to obtain, at ninth or 10th level or whatever, that you're like, yeah, well, you're gonna have to do something. And I was going to mention earlier, even in the DMG, it says you can there's a formula ish to reduce XP for gold when it starts becoming too easy to obtain. Right,
well, yeah,
right.
their example
Where
was 20
you've got a
kobolds
hundred
if you're
thousand,
like ninth or
you got
10th.
100,000 gold, but you're only getting 10K in XP. Sorry, suck it up, right? Which then promotes going after things more than just gold, because um, if it's too easy and you don't have to do anything for it, then you're not really gaining as much for it as you used to could,
I
right?
mean, there's a lot of
Which
stuff that's
Armstrong's got a real big disappointment headed his way. Just saying. Um,
that's the other part when we're talking about this. Um, is when you're talking about with Armstrong, whenever he wants to, oh, I want to raise dead because my God would do that. Now your God determines your spells. I mean, at the end of the
mhm.
day, your God chooses not to give you those spells, and I really wish you just say that. It's not argue with him. It's like, no, your God just doesn't give you that spell. No matter what you want, you're not getting that spell.
Well, it
But
wouldn't it wouldn't matter what god it was. I'm
yeah,
not doing the resurrect because it just it
I,
waters down everything, in my
I
opinion. It,
well,
it really does.
I don't have a problem with it in certain cases, which is like fine. You know, they get turned. If you're doing just mass mobs, that's fine. But yeah, it gets kind of ridiculous at a certain point. But again,
Mhm.
the what we were talking about earlier, the gods determine your spells once you get past a certain point, which is third,
Mhm.
fourth, fifth. It's like, okay, who's your representative? Who's the
Mhm.
it's the and it's like, yeah, you can claim to be whatever you
Who's your
want,
representative?
but
Who's your rep?
yes, that's what it is, and so many people are um, un forget about this because, and even I do this for myself. We're supposed to be role playing characters, and they're supposed to have both positives and negatives. And then you're
Mhm.
also supposed to be playing heroes. And when we talk heroes, we aren't talking about just regular heroes. We're talking what is level 7? It says superhero. But so,
Mhm.
this whole idea of, when they were talking earlier, well, who has an 18 and 18/00? Did you not read any of the, great Greek mythology? Because that's kind of what he was using for some of these. Yeah.
Yeah, that person's
Yes.
entire mentality was uh, juvenile at best
Uh,
and
well,
very, very. Um,
I'm just saying that what he's looking at is he's
the
like, well, I want to
maturity
play.
level was just
Yeah. Well,
non-existent, and the uh, the world
Well,
is
well,
got
no,
thousands, if not millions, of fantasy fictional stories.
yeah,
If you include the pulps and comics, etc., from the beginning of time to now, where you know the stories of things are obviously greatly exaggerated, or you know amplified and brought to ridiculous levels for the sake of kind of like one-upsmanship, or with the rest of written history, or just for the sake of writing something completely different and new, because that's where the writer was drawn and pulled to write this story about these crazy characters that did these crazy things. um, there should be no limit on the imagination when it comes to most of the stuff.
I
Obviously,
mean,
certain laws of physics need to, you got to have gravity, okay?
I mean,
Right?
for me, well, no, because you can play in zero space if you're doing stuff. But what I'm trying to say for some things,
Try
uh,
running a D&D world fantasy game with no gravity, okay?
go underwater, go underwater, and gravity has no real effect. I mean, that's kind of the weird part about it. Um, there are ways of doing it, but you're right. It's and the same thing whenever we're doing stuff. People want a world familiar enough that they can relate to it while it has the fantastic elements so they can get lost in it. Those are the two things that, because you're right, if it's too weird, most people check out.
Mhm.
I,
I'm
I,
sorry to hear that, nerdy. Uh, Clearly, you played with some people who, and we all did. It's no
yeah,
slight against you or them. We all had to learn and take those baby steps before we could run freaking immortal games. Okay, and not everybody's there. Not everybody gets there. But if it's done right, um, when you're playing like 1E white box, to a lesser extent 2E. After that, I don't know because I didn't play those games, but it's built into the mechanics. If you honestly think that a player character is going to make it past fifth or seventh level in XP from combat alone, you don't understand the math. You're just not going to make those
again,
tens of
two
thousands
E
of
does
XP
do that.
and
Two
survive
E
by combat alone.
no, 2E does allow you to do that, but that's where I think things went off the rails.
Well, yeah, because
At the point,
they decrease the amount of money you're going to get from anything. Literally, the treasure table was cut in half. So
yeah,
all the treasure that you roll up has been decreased by that table, but they increased where you can get XP from, by the book in other ways
two
that
E
don't
also
really equate to the
two.
same.
Wait a minute. 2E also removed all XP unless you play with that optional rule. You don't get any money from gold. If you actually read the rules, it gives an option in there to do so. But then they
which
jacked it.
makes your ability to progress, because they also reduce XP on magic items, which all that game did was make the game harder to level up.
I'm going to disagree
Uh,
with you here because I played plenty of 2E. We leveled up plenty fast, but what it did do is it encouraged players to go into more combat rather than trying to
mhm.
talk through stuff. That's what I'm trying to say is the it's not that
Yeah.
the XP really changed from one way to the other per se because I I
Well,
ran a
I mean,
game.
no. Okay, here, let me make it
Sure.
from my opinion. Okay, if you're going to take away, uh, let's call it one third of where you get XP from, right? If you're gonna, you no longer get XP for gold, you only
Right.
get XP for combat, right? And you only
Right.
get XP, and you get less XP for magic items because they reduce the amount if they didn't take it out completely. Then you're still needing the same XP level requirements roughly as you did before. But now the way to get that is the hardest way possible, which is through combat and maybe the acquiring of magic items and a few bonuses here and there. Mathematically speaking, you are more likely to die from combat than you are from stealing treasure.
No, no, that's my point of, I'm not disagreeing with you on this, but my point being is that because you put so much more emphasis, except at low levels, it was actually kind of good to have those XP charts because you can move up faster without
Mhm.
having any combat, so you get as much treasure. But when you got to the higher levels, it actively encouraged you to just get it purely through combat. And that was my complaint, which is you're
Oh, and
incentivizing
let's not forget
what
the fact that some of the greater monsters are actually more powerful. If
I'm
you look
not
at like the
disagreeing with that.
dragons,
Yeah, yeah.
dragons are insanely more powerful in 2E.
I agree. I agree. I'm not saying that, but you've incentivized combat. That's my whole point. Is if you're going to give XP pretty much only for combat, then all you can get out of your game is combat, and that's not what I'm trying to say. Is that this is why I like XP for gold, which people say, "Oh, well, I hate that." Well, okay, then what else you can give XP for? And the other part is
Well, because
no,
they think combat is the game.
right,
See,
right.
don't
No, I
forget
agree.
that it's over the years it's become more of a board game war game than ever before.
Yeah, but that's my point. Is you have now encouraged. I think that we're saying the same thing here, which is XP for gold makes sense unless you're. And again, with Palladium, there are other ways of doing it too, and however you calculate.
Yeah,
And you're right.
Palladium the XP table, while uh, is good in theory, but it's stolen almost verbatim from Arduin. Um, doesn't care if you level up because you start out so freaking powerful that it really doesn't matter if you ever level up because you're going to
It,
kick ass all the way through the game. I mean, unless the DM
yeah.
really throws some really tough shit at you, uh, walking into a first level any Palladium game, you are a badass. You are not
Yes.
the little farm boy, the Harry Potter, one spell a day guy. You're none of that. Okay,
Well,
so
and,
it's
and and to be fair, even for D&D, you weren't supposed to be that at first level. You're
mhm,
supposed to be. Now, don't get me wrong. You're still junior, wet nose, kind
mhm.
of thing. When it says veteran, that means usually that you've been probably through a campaign. You may not have seen a lot of combat,
You
and then
probably
you're like,
killed something or
yeah,
someone. At least
yeah,
at bare
yeah,
minimum, you've killed something, and that alone, 99.nine
sure.
nine 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 percent of the entire Earth population throughout human history has never done that, which is a good
Well,
thing. But when you've done that,
yeah.
you become instantly a different thing than you were before doing that. That's a huge step in a direction.
And there's a lot of at the end of the day, that's what I was just trying to say with different systems encourage different things. If all of a sudden I gave you experience points for finding other stuff, you can go look for that other stuff just because
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I can get that.
Right, and
Yeah.
XP, like the Palladium XP table for that game and Arduin, there's nothing on there that's more than like 1,000 XP, and I think that's for dying and coming back to life.
Oh,
While that's a hell of an experience,
I
um,
think
in
2000 was the
certain games
max
it would
for.
be what
I think 2000 was the max for it, but
was it?
you
Okay,
know,
but it's
but
ridiculously small in every other
yeah.
account. You save the world, it's like 500. 500? You're shitting me, right? Why bother?
It
Let it
well,
burn. I hate this planet. Only giving
well,
me 500 XP for
well,
saving it.
well,
Screw
and
you guys. I'm
and what I
going to
did
the
like
afterlife.
what I did like about Palladium is that it says, hey, if you come up with a good idea, you can get this. If you
But
can
the
get,
thing it did do that was insane was 25 XP for every time you used a skill, successful or not.
yeah,
If you
and I'm not
actually
even,
did the math and took that verbatim, you were walking away with like 1,500 XP a game just from skill rolls. You're like, I got a list of skills I'm performing today. What? Oh yeah, I'm
no,
doing
no.
this.
Well, see, to be fair, you only roll the skill levels if you didn't do if it's important or critical, and that's the problem that I've also noticed with
I can
which I
arrange
find
that.
yeah. But my point being is that a lot of it is a lot of people, we were guilty of this too. They learn from other DMs and they learn the bad habits as well as the good habits, and they
Mhm.
don't actually like read the rules as written. And I'm not saying that you have to
Well, they
play rules
forget
as
them over
written.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been 20 years since I read a Palladium book. I still know
Well,
it just fine. No, I don't.
but again, but if the players, you know, that the whole point of the rules is written is to understand how the game works. To me, once you know how something works, you don't have to play by the rules. Then it's up to you to say, I changed the rules because I understand their implications. A perfect example is, I roll in the room and I roll a perception check. Like, what the hell are you doing? Before you even tell me what you're doing first, and then I'll tell you what you have to do. And if
I
there's a
know.
key, if there's a key under the mattress, and you say I lift up the mattress to see if there's anything under it, I'm going to give you an automatic success. I'm not going to have you roll. I'm only going to roll
Right?
if you're telling me
But
if
again, that's
yeah,
where it's for so many, it's become a board/war game versus a role playing game.
Well, you know what I've
Um,
also noticed is a lot of DMs use it to kill dead time. Is while I'm trying to think, just make a roll, and really it's like, no, why don't you tell me what you're doing or describe stuff? And
mhm, mhm.
there's
or,
I think
or
that
like
yeah,
imagine you're in the actual room. Here's a
yes.
novel idea. Imagine what would your character do inside this room?
Well, and I tried
What?
doing that with the
Draw,
alien stuff.
draw it for me.
Yeah.
Imagine. Use your brain.
Well,
You know, uh,
even
and imagine the description.
here's the problem: is you don't want the wall of text that D&D used to do for all their
Well, yeah,
modules.
you don't tell the GM you're making a roll without permission
Yes.
first,
Well, and then the
without
other,
the GM saying, "Hey, I need you to make a roll." If you
yeah,
say, "I want to make a perception roll," I'm going to go get the hell out of here with that shit. Tell me what you do, and I'll let you
well,
know if
yeah,
you need to roll for it.
yeah, exactly.
What? Well,
Well, the
because
other
it's trying
part,
to speed up the game. See, that's what I've learned over the years is that 99% of players just want to get to the combat and the treasure. They don't give two shits about anything else. And
well, you
that
know
is
what,
the hard cold truth that most
well,
people refuse to admit.
and again, that's fine for certain things, but even games that have lots of combat,
Hmm.
I like The Witcher. I still want to do more than Witcher combat. I want some of the story and do all the other stuff. I think that
Exactly, Mike.
the other part is I come into the room. Okay, could you
Tell the wife
describe it?
congrats again for me.
When you come into the room, I'll try doing a brief description. Now, if you say, "Hey, by the way, is there a chandelier in here?" You're like, "Oh, well, okay." As a DM, yes, there is a chandelier. Or, "Oh, okay." And there are other games that allow you to use meta currencies where you can alter the environment as long as it seems reasonable. The DM still has final fiat, which people always seem to forget. As DM's like, "I don't
Mhm.
let my players change anything." You know what? If you say, "Hey, man, is there a chandelier
Well,
nearby?" Or
I don't play games where those mechanics exist, for the reasons that I want to do the work. That being describing the room and telling people what they see and what's there. Otherwise, you don't need me. We could just play a freaking mutual role, video game together, and I can have just as much fun as you on the same level. For me, making up and describing these things and trying literally because over the years I've mastered a skill trying to not give away what I'm describing. Like if I say, there's a picture on the wall, I'm going to try and say it so that you don't know to go look behind the picture on the wall for the wall safe that I invariably or inevitably put there because I think that's fun. I
well,
love wall safes. I can't
well,
tell
no,
you how
no.
many I've been into.
Well, what I'm
So
saying
finding
is,
them is awesome, because you have to do the thing. You can just say you search the room, yeah, but if you didn't look behind the tapestry, you don't find the secret door. And if you don't tell me you look behind the tapestry, you can't find the secret door. So tell me you look behind the tapestry that I just told you was in the room for a reason. You know,
okay,
um,
no, no. I think we're saying we're talking past each other for two different things.
no,
Which
no,
is
I it's
a
for.
lot of it is that we're. What I'm trying to say is that there's an environmental aspect.
Mhm.
Usually, you have to ask the DM, and at the end of the day, and that's why I said I don't mind the meta currency so much. The player can say, "Oh, can I hey, I like to use it for this." Now, again, the problem is that people take it as, well, you're intruding. You can't change anything about the environment. Look, if you say, there's is there a torch sconce with a torch in it? I'm like, ah, was there one? And the player says, hey, I'm going to use a meta currency for it.
Mhm.
Yes, there is. That's fine. Because I want to see what they want to do with it. But at the
Mhm.
same point, is I can also tell them, no, there is no torch in the natural cavern. Okay. If it doesn't fit, then the answer is no, you can't
Mhm.
do it. Um, you know, but the problem all too often is there are too many DMs that are not willing to say no to players. There's this idea like we always have to say yes. I'm like, no, you don't. you know, I,
Yeah,
I,
that's a modern thing. Uh, exactly, Mike. I gotta let you go because I
sure,
gotta
no,
go.
go.
If you know what I
Okay,
mean.
well, no, that's fine.
I've been here for 2 hours, and
Yeah, 4 minutes,
I will see you Saturday
whatever.
night, maybe.
Yeah,
I mean, I
probably
might see
Saturday.
you
We'll see.
tomorrow, obviously, but
No, that's fine.
Just check and see if you got anything planned for the weekend.
Go ahead and end it, and we'll talk for like a minute after you end it.
All right. Take care, folks.